The nature of economic transactions and economic processes covers production, consumption, distribution, and exchange of products. Anthropologists concentrate on these activities mainly in primitive and peasant societies. They focus on the modes of exchanges, including ceremonial exchanges. The concepts of reciprocity and redistribution are crucial here. The natures of trade and market systems are also studied. The processes of economic growth and development in societies are ultimately studied. What is important to note here is that the economic activities of man are not studied in isolation but in their socio-cultural setting, with the emphasis on those socio-cultural factors that influence and determine economic activity in each society. It was Bronislaw Malinowski who first propagated the idea that economic activity is a social phenomenon and is intimately associated with other aspects of the culture. Let us discuss the definition of economy. According to Raymond Skupin, economy of a society consists of the social relationships that organize the production, distribution, and exchange of goods and services. According to Karl Polanyi, economy is an institutionalized process of interaction which functions to provide material means in society. According to Conrad Philipp Kotok, economy is a population's system of production, distribution, and consumption of resources. According to Ralph Peddington, economy system is designed to satisfy wants of the people, to organize production, to control distribution, and to determine the rights and claims of ownership within the community. Economic transactions in human societies. Anthropologists have classified the nature of economic transactions in human societies on a developmental scale under 5 major headings. They are barter, exchange, reciprocity and redistribution, trade, and market. The economic systems practiced among the Trobriand Islanders and indigenous people of the Pacific Northwest coast of North America as Kula and Potlatch respectively, which are under the nature of reciprocity and redistribution economic transactions, are here discussed in detail. Kula. Kula, also known as the Kula Exchange or Kula Ring, is a ceremonial exchange system conducted in the Malne Bay province of Papua New Guinea. It involves a complex system of visits and exchanges and was first described in the West by anthropologist Bronislaw Malinowski in 1922. The word kula is derived from bita kuli, a verb meaning both, to form in the likeness or image of another. This is the reciprocity that Malinowski wrote about. Let us talk about the background of the islands. The Kula Ring spans 18 island communities of the Masin archipelago, including the Trobriand Islanders. These islands are separated from each other by sea. Some of these islands are small and rocky and are unable to produce enough food for their survival. However, these small communities are technologically specialized in certain crafts like pottery making, canoe building, stone and shell cutting, etc. Some other islands provide yam, taro, and pig in surplus. Hence, all Trobriand communities unitedly have developed a scheme by which all of them can get a similar chance to enjoy the treasures of the islands, food and artifacts. Since none of these communities possesses both the raw materials and skills to produce all the commodities, they had to depend on each other for trade with exchangeable surplus. Method of trading. Members of the communities belong to a ring called Kula Ring, and they are united by Kula partnerships. Members of each island are linked to the individuals residing on two islands, which lie in the opposite directions to it. Two types of ritual objects move constantly from one community to other. Within a closed circuit of the ring, participants travel at times hundreds of miles by canoe in order to exchange Kula valuables, which consist of red shell disc necklaces, that is Vaigun or Saulava, that are traded to the north, that is circling the ring in clockwise direction, and white shell armbands, that is Mwali, that are traded in the southern direction, that is circling counterclockwise. Kula valuables never remain for long in the hands of the recipients. Rather, they must be passed on to other partners within a certain amount of time, thus constantly circling around the ring. However, even temporary possession brings prestige and status. Important chiefs can have hundreds of partners, while less significant participants may only have fewer than a dozen. Even though the vast majority of items that Kula participants have at any given time are not theirs and will be passed on. The ownership of a particular valuable is, however, often not known. Kula valuables can be exchanged as kitaum in a direct exchange between two partners, thus fully transferring the rights of ownership. Carefully prescribed customs and traditions surround these ceremonies that accompany the exchanges, which establish strong, ideally lifelong relationships between the exchange parties. The act of giving is a display of the greatness of the giver, accompanied by shows of exaggerated modesty in which the value of what is given is actively played down. Such a partnership involves strong mutual obligations such as hospitality, protection, and assistance. On these annual voyages, when a man presents his partner with a valuable, it must be reciprocated with a gift of equivalence or greater value before too much time passes. Each man tries to hold on to the most valuable and greatest number of pieces for as long as possible. If a man keeps an important valuable for longer than a year or so, or takes it out of the ring, he can expect intense disapproval. Social network. Kula creates a two-way return of favors. This is not a form of trade where once he trades items, the commitment is absolved. Rather, in Kula, once he is a part of the circle, it is a permanent connection. The saying around Papua is, once in Kula, always in Kula. The right of participation in Kula exchange is not automatic. One has to buy one's way into it through participating in various lower spheres of exchange. The giver-receiver relationship is always asymmetrical. The former are higher in status. Such a competition unfolds through different persons offering pokala, that is offerings, and kaributu, that is solicitory gifts to the honor, thus seeking to induce him to engage in a gift exchange relationship involving the desired object. Kula exchange therefore involves a complex system of gifts and counter gifts whose rules are laid down by custom. The system is based on trust, as obligations are not legally enforceable. Significance of Kula. The study of this practice has helped to show that many indigenous people have traditions that serve many purposes beyond basic survival functions, enabling sometimes distant social groups to have harmonious relationships that benefit all. These are traded purely for purposes of enhancing mutual trust relationships, securing trade, and enhancing one's social status and prestige. The objects exchanged in Kula are not particularly valuable in themselves, but rather serve to help forge social connections which are depended upon at various times throughout an individual's life. Potlatch. The Potlatch is a festival or ceremony practiced among indigenous people of the Pacific Northwest coast of North America as in celebration of a marriage or a new accession, at which the host distributes gifts according to each guest's rank or status to display his superior wealth. Ceremonial formalities are observed in inviting guests, in speech making, and in distributing goods according to the social rank of the recipients. Great feasts and generous hospitality accompany the potlatch. It is a vital part of indigenous culture of the Pacific Northwest. rites of passages, celebrations of births, weddings, funerals, a daughter's first mens, naming and honoring of the deceased are some of the many forms that occurs under the potlatch. The potlatch will usually involve a feast with music, dance, and spiritual ceremonies, etc. The most sacred ceremonies are usually observed in the winter. It is important to note the differences and uniqueness among the different cultural groups and nations along the coast. Each nation, tribe, and sometimes clans have their own way of practicing the potlatch, so it presents a very diverse presentation and meaning. Nonetheless, the main purpose has and still is the redistribution of wealth procured by families. At this gathering, a family or hereditary leader hosts guests in their family's house and hold a feast for their guest. The sponsor of a potlatch gives away many useful items such as food, blankets, flour, worked ornamental mediums of exchange called coppers, and many other various items to invited guests who were expected to accept any gifts offered with the understanding that at a future time they were to reciprocate in kind. Traditional gifts included weapons, slaves, furs, and blankets. In return, the host was accorded prestige and status in direct proportion to his expenditures. To give a potlatch enhanced one's reputation and validated social rank, the rank and requisite potlatch being proportional both for the host and for the recipients by the gifts exchanged. Prestige increased with the lavishness of the potlatch, the value of the goods given away in it. The status of any given family is raised not by who has the most resources, but by who distributes the most resources. Food at a potlatch must be abundant. Ideally, the guest should not be able to finish what is served but should take the surplus home. Traditional foods are served, though what is traditional has been modified over time as introduced foods have become standards in the community. Salmon, dried for winter use, has been the prized and usually abundant principal food. Other dishes include berries, seaweed, and meat of mountain goats, elk, bears, seals, small mammals and halibut, all smoked or dried. While the emphasis varies from group to group and through time, the potlatch clearly was the fundamental means of circulating foodstuffs and other goods amongst groups, validating status positions and establishing and maintaining warfare and defense alliances. Economic organization is set in a social framework of relations between persons and between groups, expressed in different conceptual ways and with different emphases as values, symbols, rule of conduct and pattern of behavior. It thus implies human choice with the results of decision. Choices, wants and implication in action involve personal relations and social relations that work in economic transactions in human societies. Reciprocity and gift exchange as economic transactions establish a solidarity relationships among the communities that benefit all, as in case of Kula, and so also the redistribution of wealth procured by families for validating status positions and establishing and maintaining warfare and defense alliances in between the families and groups in case of potlatch.